Good afternoon, Barbara. How are you?
I'm great, Chuck. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for joining me today on the Q.A.C. Team Podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. I love to talk about my passion, so I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Let's go and get started and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do.
Well, I am the founder of a company called Productive Environment Institute. It actually started 47 years ago with a $7 ad in a New York City newspaper. Um,
Wow.
I had lived in India for almost 5 years with my first husband. We'd adopted three orphan children, one with special needs, and we moved back to New York City, and he worked for a nonprofit and didn't make enough money to pay for living in New York. So it was like I needed to add something to the income, but I wanted my kids to be first. So I decided the way to do it was to find a problem in the world that I could solve that other people would pay me for. And to do that, I sat on the playground and listened to conversations. And one of the conversations I began to hear was about disorganization and clutter. And I thought, well, they didn't have my mother and father because I'm not a naturally organized person. I've been diagnosed with ADHD. I love to start things. I don't like to finish them. I love the big picture and I hate details. But God bless me by, first of all, I grew up on a farm. And if you're a farmer, the cows don't give milk or the crops don't grow if you don't have systems. So I grew up with systems and I can still, we lived in the second floor of a tenant farmhouse. And I can still hear my mother saying, if you're going upstairs, take something with you. And so
Love
that
it.
was the way we did it. So I ran a $7 ad, which is a big deal. I used to walk 20 blocks because I didn't have 50 cents to the bus. And the ad said disorganized. I organized closets, files, kitchens, you name it, called Barbara Hemphill. I got two crank calls from guys trying to pick me up. And the third call was from a 55-year-old widow whose husband was a solar practitioner attorney. He died suddenly and left piles of paper everywhere, and she had not a clue what to do. And I went in to help sort them out. So that's how it all started.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a really interesting start there to the podcast interview. And I was gonna mention our second question, is so why'd you decide to be a business owner? So tell a little bit about, the $7 ad to what you found. So tell us a little more how you decided to why'd you decide to do all of this? What was that driving force?
Well, at first it was money. I mean, I needed to pay the bills. Okay. I mean, it's like I just wanted income, but I wanted my kids to be first. And so I wanted something that I could do on my time. And back in those days, organizing was unheard of. Nobody had ever heard of. In fact, a year later, we moved to Washington, D.C., and I went to the Small Business Administration to ask them to help me with the business in that area. And they laughed me out of the room and said, this is not a business. Nobody's going to pay for organizing closets and cupboards and kitchens. And now, I think I saw the statistics. It's an 11.8 billion with a B dollar industry now. So, and that's just residential. And we don't do residential anymore except for home offices. Now we actually do organizing within businesses.
Yeah, my next question is going to be, so why'd you choose this industry? So you already pinpointed that you don't really do residential, you only do business. So tell us a little bit more about, why you chose this industry for business.
Well, it evolved. I didn't choose it for business. I chose it for individuals. And then one of my clients was a real estate agent. So it started, she said, would you come and organize my, well, first I organized her car because back in those days, your car was your office. Well, it still is. I can even remember she had a fax machine in her car, if you can imagine. And so I
Amazing.
car and then I did her office. And then she said, would you come and speak to the board of realtors? And at that point, I had been making my living by talking to anybody that would give me a platform, but I'd never spoken to a business group. And I spoke to that business group, and that just kind of evolved because I'd help people at home, and then they'd say, can you help me at the office? And so it evolved. And then I quickly learned that the number one organizing challenge was paper. I can remember one of my clients was an astrophysicist, and I was organizing his garage, which was full of boxes of papers from his business. And he was laughing, and he said, if anybody would have ever told me I'd be laughing cleaning out my garage, I'd have told them they were crazy.
Yeah.
But one of the things that our company provides is support, accountability, and support because the business has been based on four words. Clutter is postponed decisions. The reason those papers pile up on the desk, the reason those emails gather to thousands. One of our clients recently had 7 email addresses and over 100,000 emails in just one of those 7 addresses. So clutter is postponed decisions. But I found paper was a big problem. And people would ask me the question, how long do you keep bank receipts, real estate records, tax records? And I didn't know the answer to it, but I thought there must be a book that would have that answer. And that was before Google also. And I went to the library and there wasn't a book. And I thought, this is fascinating because it doesn't matter if somebody makes $18,000 a year or $800,000 a year, they still need to know the answer to that question. And so in 1988, I wrote a book called Taming the Paper Tiger, which addressed all the paper that came first, it was into the household. And then we split it up and we did Taming the Paper Tiger at home and Taming the Paper Tiger at work, because then we found out, well, papers at work is the same. And then we moved into the digital age. So for years, my company was called the Paper Tiger Institute. Then when we moved into the digital age, I didn't want companies to think I was old fashioned. So that was when I
Yeah.
renamed the company Productive Environment Institute. And we define a productive environment as an intentional setting in which everyone can accomplish their work and enjoy their lives and enable others to do the same.
Love it. And my next question obviously is going to tie off of that. I'm just curious to know, tell us some about the challenges that you faced when you first decided that this is what you're going to do. And you've been doing this for a long time. So tell us a little bit about those challenges you faced when you get started doing this.
Well, the biggest challenge was recognizing that the reason they didn't make the decisions was because of the emotion about the decision.
Yeah.
I wrote a book called Less Clutter, More Life. And the premise is that physical and digital clutter are symptoms of emotional and spiritual clutter. So when I was sitting with people in their executives in their offices, which I've done hundreds of times, and they had those piles of paper, those papers represent hopes and dreams and fears and intentions. And so in order to decide, do I keep this and where do I keep this and how do I find this and who needs this and all of that, you have to deal with the fears. It's usually fear of making a mistake, fear of offending someone, fear of forgetting something, fear of letting it go and then wanting it back, fear of looking foolish. And so I ended up becoming a facilitator. In fact, one client one time, there was a female and her husband was complaining about what she was paying, and she said to him that the option is a psychiatrist, and that was the end of that. Because
Good choice, right?
I'm not making the decisions for the client. I'm asking the questions and just facilitating them making the decisions. So we're just coaching them through it, but we're not telling them what to do.
That could be a challenge in itself, right? I mean, you got, people who are hoarders, and it's kind of the same thing, right? So you got hoarding, they don't want to get rid of it. So you got to have somebody who can help get through the psychological part of
Yeah.
why
Well,
they
I
hold on to
did
it.
early on. I did a few orders. I said, no, this is not my target market. That's a whole. I mean, there are people who do it, and we recommend people there. We know people who are very good at it, and they've studied at it. But our clients tend to be highly intelligent, highly educated, very creative people, active in their community. Often they're caregivers. In fact, one of the reasons that people come to us is that they're having to deal with their own stuff, and then suddenly they become a caregiver for a family member. And then it's like, okay, now I not only have to organize my stuff, I have to organize all this. And it really sends people into tailspin. And most of our clients are people who are in some kind of transition. Maybe it's empty nest or a divorce or retired. They're retired from their job, but they still want to work and they still have things that they want to do, but they have to deal with all the paper that accumulated in that past career. Or sometimes they're in a position of, I know I want to do something more, but I don't know what. Well, what I've discovered through the years is that helping people organize often unclutters that real purpose for which they were created.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? It's you you just said it best. It's like you have someone who went and took care of someone and now they forgot about themselves. And you come along and like, let me help you fix that problem that you just created from helping a problem, right? That's you can't, I mean, that's just what a great story, right?
Well, it's a great career. I don't have to work. Everybody says, when are you going? I'm 78 years old, and people say, when are you going to retire? I said, I'm not retired. I'm refired because I believe this moment in history, we are a society so overcome with stuff, not physical stuff and digital stuff, but even more ideas. Our brains are full of things we want to do, that we hope to do, that we intended to do. And one of the things that I ask people all the time is, if you were to leave this earth tonight, what regret would you have?
Great question.
The answer to that question, Chuck, is a form of clutter. Because clutter is anything that prevents you from accomplishing your work and enjoy your life. So, in my own
Yeah.
experience, the first time I went to a class, and the teacher challenged us with that question. And the first thing that came to my mind was that there was one child that I didn't have a particularly good relationship. It wasn't a bad relationship, it just wasn't a good one. And I said, well, I can't do anything. I've done everything I can do. And he said, you're wrong. There's always something else you can do. And that was in January. And I thought, okay, if I haven't connected with this child, a daughter, by Mother's Day, I'm going to get on an airplane and fly and show up on her doorstep.
Oh,
Well, this illustrates the power of intention because before May rolled around, we had actually connected. And to this day, we talk every week. So
oh,
whatever that one thing is, I think addressing that. And one of the ways that we work with people is by identifying what's the next action. So often people have a big I want to write a book. I hear that one all the time. Research shows that 80% of the population believes they have a book in them. 3% write it and only 2% publish it.
oh,
And often I help people write books because sometimes my generation, we collect china and silver and art because we thought that was the legacy we were leaving our children and grandchildren,
right.
only
Yeah.
to find out they didn't want it. And that brings a whole new issue of emotional. It's like, well, what does that say about my life? So
Yeah.
then part of when we're working with them clearing the clutter, it's like, okay, what is your legacy? And sometimes it's their story, and your very best legacy you can leave is your story.
I just went through this very thing you talked about, just brought back, gave me chills because I went through my mother's stuff had passed away in 2015. And my father's been gone for over 30 years now. And I had all her stuff in my closet. And I had to go through it and figure out what to keep, what not to keep. And I had thousands of pictures that she kept from the 60s all the way up to the late 2000s and when she passed away, right?
Right.
And I went through these pictures and I looked at them. They meant so much to me, right? But yet I looked at it and said, if my kids look at this, do they know who they are? No,
No.
don't keep it. If they don't know who they are, why do it, right? You know?
Yeah.
So it's a tough decision for me to put that in the trash, but I did it because it's the right thing to do. Declutter, you can't hang on to stuff that means nothing to the generation after me.
Well, it was the greatest gift you gave your children, Chuck, because I cannot tell you the hours I have spent with clients paying me to sit there and go through stuff from aunts and grandparents and stuff that had been sometimes published, gone 2 generations, and so angry at grieving that they lost this, but also angry that they've been left such a mess. And we're always more willing to be accountable to other people than we are ourselves. So when we talk to people about clearing up their clutter and memorabilia, you brought it, pictures and memorabilia is the most difficult because that's where the most emotion is.
Very, very
One of
emotional.
Very,
Yeah.
very emotional. And so you need to go through that. And part of doing it with someone else is that you can go through that. In fact, one of the things I learned, I was autographing books, Taming the Paper Tiger at Barnes& and Noble in New York City. And I made the comment that one of the things I had learned was that when people had trouble letting go, if I asked enough questions, I would always find that they had had a severe emotional loss. And when I was done speaking, there was a young man in his early 20s came up and he said, "My apartment is so full of stuff, mostly paper. I haven't had anybody in it for months." And he said, "I come home from work at night." He said, "I sort on my bed because it's a studio apartment and I don't have much flat space." And he said, "I begin sorting the papers on my bed." And he said, "I literally become physically paralyzed." And he said, "There are nights when I shove the paper aside and literally crawl into bed with my paper." And then he looked at me and he said, "My mother died when I was 6. Are
Wow.
you telling me I have to deal with the grief of losing my mother before I can manage my paper?" I said, "Well, I can't answer that. I'm not a mental health professional. But what I can tell you from the experience I've had is that if you find someone you trust, probably not a family member in most cases, who can help you decide, okay, clutters postpone decisions, helping you decide what you want and what you need to keep, then you will be able to organize your paper. And what I found is it helps decision making everywhere else as well. So yesterday I met with a gentleman who's a sommelier in a restaurant, and he has been there 39 years and has piles of paper, which his boss has been trying to get him to do something with, and he was very reluctant. But he's going through his mother's stuff. And now he's realizing how difficult that is. And so I said, if we organize the papers on your desk, it will help you organize your mother's stuff because it's going to teach you decision making. And the decision making is the key to what it is. Well, I told that story about the man in New York. I was speaking to a group of 700 executive women at a university. And a woman walked up to me. She said, "You just saved my marriage." I said, "Wow, that's pretty dramatic. Do you mind expanding?" And she said, "I came to this conference with the intention of telling my husband, to whom I've been married 13 years, that I was leaving." Because she says he's a pack rat and I have allergies. And so it's just been a problem. And then she looked at me and the tears started coming down her face. And she said, "I never realized until I heard you that it wasn't that he wouldn't let go, but that he couldn't. His mother died when he was 7."
Yeah. It took me 3 months to go through that stuff and get rid of it. But that one step, now this rest of my condo cleaning is going to be really easy breezy because the hard part is done, you know?
True. Yep,
Yeah.
it's absolutely right. It really is.
And
And it's
and
so
again, yeah, and the postponed decision, you said it best because I didn't want to face that opening up those boxes and look at those pictures because all those memories come back, right?
right.
You hit all that, the joy and the fun and the laughter and all the memories that were in those photos, but they're still in the brain. So I
Yeah,
don't have to worry about it. They're just a physical thing. And
right.
it made it easy. And once I got through that hard part, the rest is easy.
Yeah, it's true. It's
Mhm.
absolutely right. Well, good for you. You gave your children a wonderful gift.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave that to them. It would have been a mess.
Yeah, true.
So what are the expectations for your business in the next year or two? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Well, I think that a very interesting thing is I remember about probably 10 years ago, I was hired to speak to a sales team for a very large contact lens distribution company. And I told the sales manager that the tagline of our company was "Accomplish your work and enjoy your life." And he made the comment, "I just want them to do their damn work. I don't care if they enjoy their life."
Oh,
And
no.
I think, for a while, a lot of companies felt that way. But then COVID came along, and I think that's completely changed. Now, in order to uh, recruit and retain employees, management is going to have to care about whether they accomplish their work and enjoy their life. But the irony of it is, An employee who's enjoying their life is going to be a lot better employee. And employees don't leave in most cases because of money. In most cases, they leave because they're not enjoying their life.
Yeah.
And so one of the services that we offer, it's my favorite service. We call it Productivity Party. And it's a training event that we hold for a group of people in a big department. Will in a big company, we'll do it in department by department. So you can manage up to 25 people or something at one time. And it's a day when everybody clears clutter. And we turn it into fun by, I do a seminar called Sometimes It Takes an Expert to Take Out the Trash to teach people decision making. And then we set up recycling bins and shredding bins and trash to treasure where you put flower vases and personal books and stuff. And then the big thing is a staging area. And a staging area is, okay, this is in my office. It belongs to the company. I don't want it. I don't know what to do with it. And so they can put it in the staging area. And we give prizes for the funniest thing, and the most valuable thing, and the most worthless thing to make it fun. We feed them breakfast, and we feed them lunch, and say, okay, you have
Nice.
one job today only. And that job is to go through your office as fast as you can, pick up every item in it, and say, does this help me accomplish my work or enjoy my life? If it doesn't, it's clutter and you don't need it. At first, employees are like, oh, I have real work to do today, and I don't want to do this. So I'll say, how many of you left home with more clutter lying around than you prefer? Well, 50% will raise their hand, but it's true statistically for 80%. So I say, everything we're going to talk about today applies at home as well. And so then at least they're listening. But here's the funny part. They're usually listening for what they're going to tell their roommate or their significant other. So I make them raise their hand and do a pledge that they're listening for what they are going to do, not what they're going to tell somebody else to do. And then that makes them laugh. And of course, then they're learning better. And by the time the third hour has rolled around, it's like, oh, I'm going home and cleaning my garage. Oh, I'm going home and cleaning my. And they realize, and the phrase we hear over and over is, I feel so much lighter. People do not realize how that clutter, whatever it is. I mean, it might be, I was in an office recently where it was plants that didn't look healthy. Well, plants in an office that don't look healthy give all the wrong messages to your customers and to your employees. It's
That's
like if you
true.
don't care your plants, how are you going to care for me?
Yeah. Yeah. Very good point.
Your environment is everything. Your environment is your physical, it's your digital. It's that one of the areas in an office is always the cupboards under the sink, where the printer cartridges for the printer you don't have anymore, and that kind of stuff. Years
Just
ago,
piled up.
Yeah, years ago, I was in Washington, D.C., and we found in a storeroom a company had six Apple computers.
Wow.
And it was like they were just sitting there. Well, we found a nonprofit. I mean, this nonprofit was thrilled. They had six computers that they didn't have to buy. So I think it's about stewardship. So I feel like, first of all, people need hope these days. People are so discouraged and so overwhelmed. And nothing gets faster result. That one day, at the end of the day, people are just ecstatic that how much they've accomplished. And it
Yeah.
makes an enormous impact in a very short period of time. So, and I train people, and a lot of the work, probably 80% of the work we do is virtual now because there's a lot of shame around clutter. And so sometimes people don't want you to see their clutter. Well, we don't have to now. We can do it virtually and help you make the decisions. And there's the advantages of that. It's less expensive because we don't have travel and all that. But it also means you can do it in shorter increments. They can do little bits and pieces. And so, I'm really revved up. I think this is really an important time to be addressing this because the world needs us all as business owners to be the best that we can be. And when we are
Yeah.
buried in clutter, we're hampering that from being the case.
Yeah. Now, do you think the results are still the same, whether you're in person or virtual? Are those results like, is there any difference between
It
that?
depends on the situation. So we always, when we're assessing the situation, we can identify whether being in person is there. And sometimes it's some of each. I'm doing something with a company where one person will be there virtually, but then our consultants will be online virtually with the different teams. So the one person on site will be kind of managing what's going on. So it just depends. We customize it. The whole idea is to create a program that makes the office, the business, a productive environment where everyone can accomplish their work and enjoy their lives and
Yeah.
doing whatever they need. And mostly it's facilitating them. In fact, I work with one company where had me on the retainer for 2 or 3 years. And during that time, I trained three of their employees to do what I was doing so that when I was gone, they would continue because those productivity parties should happen twice a year.
Oh,
And one company does it on St. Patrick's Day and they do it on Halloween. And it's part of the company culture. And when we did the first one, there was lots of resistance. And 3 years later, the executive wrote me a note and said, I'd have an infinitely difficult more time taking it away now than we did getting them to do it because they realize they're getting paid to clear their clutter. They get lunch and they get prizes, but
yeah.
there's a lot of people who would like to do that, but if you try to do it by yourself, it's like, we're working on this big project. What are you doing? Because when you're cleaning, you have to ask questions. Do we need this? And what does this mean? And if everybody's doing it together, so it really is a team building factor.
That's incredible. So how does our audience reach out to you and contact you?
Well, a very simple way is you can go to a website called lesscluttermorelife.com. That's a 14-minute training session that introduces some of the principles that we talked about. So you immediately get something that you can learn. And then that will tie you into something where you will get a picture, what we call the office blueprint. So office transformation blueprint. And it's literally a picture of the components of a productive environment. And then you'll be on that way you can get on our list. And we do all kinds of other events. We're doing an event coming up later this month called Project Palooza. And it's a Saturday and it's 3 hours, and every participant is picking some project that they want to move forward. And so then we're facilitating. It might be a decluttering project. It might be one person's coming on because she wants to write a book. So we're going to use those 3 hours to put a plan together for how she's going to do that. What's the deadline and how does she find a publisher and all that? So Project Palooza. So we do different. We did a picture palooza one time, which had to do with organizing your pictures. We've done paper palooza, do files. We have all kinds of services that are available depending on what people use. So if they go to lesscluttermorelife.com, that will put them in touch with us, and then we can help them figure out exactly what it is that they want to do. Because between the experience that I've had, my business partner, we've been in business together 20 years, and we have consultants that some of them has been with us for over a decade. So we have lots of experience, and we sometimes work with more than one person with the same client because we kind of match people up according to what their needs are.
That's awesome. That sounds like a really good business model, a good plan.
It's great fun. I feel so blessed to have it. It's so much fun to work with the clients.
I hear you. Barbara, thanks for coming on and sharing your story with us. I know our audience is going to love it. I'm going to get that link off of your website and I'll put it in the show notes for you. So if our audiences they listen to this, they want to reach out to you, I'll put it in there for them, make it easy to reach you.
That would be great. And they can always go to my website, barbarahemphill.com, and they can reach out there. I do a 30-minute discovery session for anybody who wants it just to explore, is there something that you want to do that we can help you do?
Yeah. And to also find if they are, should I say, mentally or psychologically in the right place to do that, because that's a big part of this, right? Is that you have to be in the mindset to do this because I struggled with that for many a days and weeks up to getting it done. I couldn't physically and mentally do it, you know?
Well, I think you would have found if we had met earlier that we could have had a conversation early on that would help you get through that.
Yeah.
And that would have saved a lot of time. And a lot of people do procrastinate about it for a very long time. It's not something you do right away, but many people wait a lot longer than necessary and they suffer a lot of guilt in the meantime. They're not really enjoying today's life because they're thinking, I really should be doing this. And so we
Yeah.
want to help people get over the hump because we can do that. We can give them the support they need to make it a lot easier. And so sometimes people even end up laughing and smiling when they're doing it, and they find that very helpful.
Yeah. And I also feel like a big burden is lifted off of my shoulders because, like you said earlier, when I go, I don't have this stuff laying around for my kids to have to go through because why should they, right? Nobody behind us should have to deal with our clutter.
Absolutely. That's so right, Chuck.
Absolutely. Well, Barbara, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. Great story. And we'll catch up soon.
Okay, thank you, Chuck.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
You've been listening to the Q.A.C. Team podcast with your host, Charles Luttrell. Connect with us on the web at qacteam.com, TikTok at Q.A.C. Team, Facebook and Instagram at QAC.team. Thanks for your support.